We say the prayer. हमें अपने मन को हमेशा संतुलित रखना है। इसी में हमारा आत्मविकास समाया हुआ है। त्वयि मे सर्वं ओम ओम ओम। आत्मनि मे त्वं ओम ओम ओम। स्मारय स्मारय ओम ओम ओम। चित्तं शामय शामय ओम। स्मराणि सोऽहं ओम ओम ओम। शान्तं चिन्मयम् ओम माम् ओम। तटस्थं केवलम् ओम ओम ओम। स्मराणि शुद्धम् ओम माम् ओम। Okay. So in previous sutra, we discussed about pranas, the udana and samana. So a part of prana which can be brought under some control, which can be known, which can be manipulated, that we discussed in last sutra. You will find that now these sutras are going in different direction, in the sense they are going deeper into the Sankhya philosophy now. Having discussed about the siddhis of ordinary kind, where in becomes person becomes invisible, person gets knowledge of certain things. All these are subjects which are kind of available in the external world. There are so many things we have to know about. So those kind of siddhis have been discussed now, till now, and now we are venturing into something deeper, where the Sankhya tattvas are being as if touched. So Patanjali is now taking us into deeper philosophy of Sankhya through the sutras. Now which will follow. All those sutras will take us very deep into the philosophy. And in terms of knowledge, if we talk about, a lot of theories of science also would be coming into our mind when we are discussing these, because ultimately science is interested in knowing what is the reality of the external world. So physics is trying to know it, chemistry is also trying to know it, biology is also trying to know it. So all positive sciences which are there, they are telling us about certain aspects of external reality, and they are also trying to find out a unified theory where they can explain everything. Because when you talk about physics, the physics is talking about certain aspects, and which the chemistry is not, which is related to chemistry, that is not touched by physics. Chemistry is trying to explain in a certain different way. So chemistry says that there are certain amount of elements, and because of which the external world is in existence, and our bodies are also made up of those elements. So that is the way chemistry looks at it. Biology divides everything in terms of what is known as living matter and non-living matter. So अगेन अ वेरी वेरी एंशियंट क्लासिफिकेशन, जैसे पुराने लोग बोलते हैं कि दुनिया में दो ही चीजें हैं, जड़ और चेतन. दैट वन विच इज कॉन्शियस and that is which is not conscious. So जड़ जगत और चेतन जगत, ऐसे वो लोग डिवाइड करते थे. तो बायोलॉजी भी वही करती है. बायोलॉजी ऑर्गेनिक मैटर के बारे में बात करती है. तो ऑर्गेनिक मैटर जिसमें जिसमें से ऑर्गेनिज्म बनता है. So our bodies, our minds are nothing but a living organism. So biology would talk about this living organism in the form of our living body, and body has got certain capacities. Body has got certain characteristics. Same way as the inorganic substance or the external material world has got certain characteristics. So the distinction between them is made, and then division is made according to living and non-living matters. Why I'm saying is because you will be able to appreciate what this sutra is trying to tell us, or the subsequent sutras which you will be doing, what they will be telling us about. So Sankhya has taken a definite position about the human body as well as about the external world. Sankhya explains everything. Everything. So in a way, one can say Sankhya is a unified theory from the Indian perspective, from the point of view of Indian philosophy. Sankhya is a very comprehensive kind of philosophy which explains everything. What is human body? What are human capacities? From where they come? What is the origin of these human capacities? How the body comes into existence? And not only that, they also explain the external world, how the external world is and what it is made up of, what is the ultimate reality related to the external world. So when we don't have to see really, we don't have to be fanatic about it, or we don't have to be very, very insistent that this is the truth, because you will appreciate that, or all of us must appreciate that ever since the inception of human race, all scientists all over world, they have been trying to understand what is the purpose of human life, what is happening, what is this earth, what is this space, what are these planets, and what is the purpose of our life, and how does life begin, what is the nature of this life, uh, the pranas we discussed last time. So science also has been, and thinking minds, when science was not very well developed, we know that the positive sciences developed maybe only a few hundred years back, but then philosophy is very old, and since ancient times different philosophies have taken a different stand about what is the origin of human beings, what is the origin of life on this earth, why the life is there, and what is the nature of the external world. So all this has been a subject matter of inquiry by the thinking minds. And Sankhya had taken this position, what we are discussing, many thousand years back. Sankhya had decided that this is how things are, and they have explained it. So yoga is grafted on this Sankhya philosophy. Many a times when yoga is being talked about, yoga is considered to be a certain technology. क्या है योग में? There are asanas, there are pranayam, meditation is there, yamas are there, ahimsa, satya, etc. They are there. So that is how we conceive of yoga. But in yoga, when it says that you have to do this kind of meditation, or you have to attain this concentration, what is the purpose of that? Ultimately, what are we going to gain out of that? So somebody may say that nowadays, as the focus is on health, so people will say yoga is for good health. But then for good health, yoga is not needed. Ayurveda is good enough in India. Ayurveda is good enough for physical health. So yoga has to be something deeper than just the taking care of the body and the health. Health is not the primary objective of yoga. So yoga is for a different purpose. So all this elaborate technology, and we have been seeing, you know, this Sankhya Yoga Sutra and Vyas Bhashya. Vyas Bhashya is also known as Sankhya Pravachan Bhashya. Although it is a commentary on Yoga Sutras, but the one of the name of Vyas Bhashya is Sankhya Pravachan Bhashya. So it is essentially a commentary on Sankhya philosophy. And in between, you find several techniques of yoga have been explained. If we look at the Yoga Sutras right from chapter 1, Abhyas Vairagya is there, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna is there, Ishwar Pranidhan is there, surrender to God, taking God as a central thing, totally surrendering to God, the bhakti, the devotion, that is a technique of yoga. Same way, So many other techniques have been talked about in chapter 1 in the form of parikarmas, where one of the technique is pranayam, prachardana vidharana abhyam va pranasya. Then meditation on the chitta or mind which is liberated. What will be the characteristics of a liberated person? So contemplating on that liberated person, that is also a part of technique. Several techniques have been mentioned. Then we come to chapter 2, which is practical side, contains so many techniques. Tapa is there. Tapa is austerities. Austerity is done with a certain purpose, austerity done in a certain manner. Swadhyay, self-study is there, self-analysis is there. Then Ishwar Pranidhan again has been talked about there. Then we have Ashtanga Yoga. We have yamas, five niyamas. They are techniques which are helping. Helping in what way? For what purpose? The ultimate purpose, if we see, that is being given in chapter 2 in the Sutra 28. We had discussed that. Those of you who were present, you will remember that why Ashtanga Yoga is to be practiced. Yoga anga anusthanad ashuddhi shaya jnana deeptira viveka khyate. By practice of all the accessories of yoga, all the branches of or the steps of yoga, the impurities are removed. Impurities in the mind, impurities in the body, they are removed. And as a result, what happens? There is a luster of knowledge. One gains knowledge. Knowledge about what? And what is the purpose of gaining that knowledge? Because knowledge also has to have some purpose. We are gaining knowledge. Every day we are gaining knowledge. But where are we going to put it to use? What is the purpose of gaining that knowledge? So third thing which is given in that sutra is that viveka khyati, where the discrimination can be collected, or one can reach that point where mind acquires the capacity to discriminate between what is truth and what is untruth, what is real and what is unreal. This is what is the essential message of yoga. So yoga enables us to come to a distinction, come to acquire the capacity of mind to be able to understand what is truth and what is untruth, what is real and what is unreal. And this is what is the purpose of Sankhya. Sankhya says, hold on to something which is lasting and abiding. And everything which is changing, it is ephemeral, it is temporary, it will come and go. You cannot hold on to it. And if you hold on to it, you will be miserable because you are not understanding the truth. You are not understanding the reality. So Sankhya says, hold on to that which is non-changing, which is eternal, which is permanent, which is lasting, which is not changing. So this is the essential philosophy which is there. And then they have talked about 25 principles. In these 25 principles, entire Sankhya is there, and everything in the world can be explained in terms of these 25 tattvas, as they are called. 25 tattvas or 25 principles. So now today's sutra is again talking about one such fundamental tattva. And this tattva is there in the external world. This tattva is there in the internal world. Little extension of imagination, little extension and flexibility of mind will be required to be able to understand and fully appreciate what this sutra is trying to say. So what this sutra says, shrotra akashayo sambandha sanyama divyam shtrotram. Translating in English, it means by doing sanyama on the relationship between Akasha, if we translate it in English, space. By doing sanyama on the relationship between space and the power of hearing, divine sense of hearing is gained. So this is the Siddhi which is attained. If one can do sanyama, one can concentrate fully on the relationship between the space and the ears we have through which we are. Right now I'm talking to you, you are hearing my voice. You are hearing my voice because the ears are there. So this is the connection. So what this Akasha has got to do with the power of hearing we all have. If we focus on that, then gradually we will understand the principle which is governing the capacity of hearing, and then we can acquire certain unusual capacity of hearing, which will be known as divine hearing. Or we will be able to hear sounds which are usually not heard by the ordinary individual who has not worked on his mind. So that kind of divine hearing will be possible. Now, I don't know in how many, how many of you this rings some bells. They say that Vedas are not written. They were not composed by anybody. Vedas were not written by any human being. They were not composed by anybody. But Vedas were the mantras which were heard by the rishis or the seers. And those sounds were coming and those sounds were heard by them. And those sounds were converted into Sanskrit language and the Vedas were composed. Those sounds were converted into language. So Vedas are basically, that is why Vedas are called Shruti. वेदों को हम लोग श्रुति बोलते हैं. What that which is heard. It is not which is composed or it is not written. Because poetry, normally Sanskrit verses are written by somebody. They are composed by somebody's mind. But original Shrutis of Vedas, they were heard by the rishis. So again, you will find, there's a very deep connection of the knowledge which is related to Vedas, which is again connected to the power of hearing. Now, we are not able to hear these sounds. Why we are not able to hear these sounds? And then a very large portion of Indian people who follow certain paths of spiritual practices in India, they follow this method where they are trying to hear the divine sounds. So even in case of Hatha Yogis, the same thing is there. Because if we look at the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is the most important and most authentic work on yoga presently available. So when we look at this Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it is divided into 4 chapters. The first 3 chapters are talking about asanas, the diet, the pranayam, the bandhas, the mudras, the pranas, the kundalini shakti. And then the 4th chapter, which is very important, which is the culmination of or development of Hatha Yoga to the maximum extent. It talks about Nadanusandhan. It talks about Nadanusandhan. What is
I'm very fine.
Nadanusandhan?
How are you?
Nadanusandhan is
Tired.
listening to the
Working hard.
sounds and doing some kind of research on that or focusing on that completely and trying to understand it. So there you will find that Hatha Yoga as a principal technique and Nadanusandhan is also related to Samadhi. So this Nada is very important and entire Tantra is based on Nada. They talk about Shakti, Nada and sound. The mantra is related to sound. So this sutra from that perspective has got lots of connections with the entire ancient Indian philosophy. So we will try to understand how this tattvas are being talked about. Now you see, here when we talk about this, there are certain areas which need to be understood to be able to really appreciate what this sutra is trying to say. So here we saw that connection between the organ of hearing, that is ears, and the Akasha Bhuta is the object of Sanyam. And when this Sanyam is carried out this way, divine power of hearing is heard. Sankhya divides the sense capacities in 2 categories. One is the ordinary category, which we all have. The other is the divine category, which only few can develop. And they can be developed by everybody. Everybody has got the potential to develop that with the prescribed method and prescribed way. And the other is the objects of senses. We all have 5 objects of senses, which are again very, very ordinary and which can also reveal much more than the ordinary reveal.
Yeah, we'll need in 5 minutes.
When they reveal much more or deeper things, then they are called divine. सुरेश जी जरा म्यूट कर दीजिए ना, आवाज आ रहा है. हाँ, yeah. So now this we all know that without exception we all have five sense organs. Out of that, the power of hearing is being talked about here. So I had today, as I was thinking about this sutra, I just jotted down a few lines. So I will first read from that, and then if the need be there, then I will explain it. So Sankhya and Yoga divides all the knowable substances in world into five categories, which are known as Pancha Mahabhutas. These categories are based on how the world presents itself to us and how we perceive and experience the world. We know the world through five senses and or five sense organs, Jnanendriyas. We know the world through Jnanendriyas. We know the world through five sense channels in five different ways. There is no other way to know the world. Similarly, the world presents itself in only five ways. There are millions of objects in the world, but only five ways are there in which we can know those millions of objects. Therefore, all the knowables are categorized as five. And what are these five? Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Shiti. So, the, many times because the word Akash is said, so people take it as a sky. Because in Hindi, Marathi, English, in Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, and some other Indian languages, Akasha means sky. So when Akasha Bhuta is being talked about, people take it for Akasha. It is much more than that. Same way Vayu, the air. And same way Agni. Agni is related to light. Any kind of light will be related to Agni Tattva. Any kind of liquidity will be related to water element. It will be called Jala, Apa. It will be called Apa or Jala. And any kind of solidity, any kind of solid substance will be called Prithvi Tattva. So this entire world is made up of Pancha Mahabhutas. There's nothing else. Now these Pancha Mahabhutas are not separate categories, but they are created by the mind because the world presents itself as two in five categories. There's no other way we can know the world. There's no possibility. Scientifically also, if we try to understand, we have certain senses through which we gather the stimuli from the external world, and external world is known through these five. Either we are seeing, or we are hearing, or we are touching, or we are tasting, or we are smelling. Is there any other way we can know the world? There's no other way. So this experience simply tells us because here we have to understand yoga and Sankhya is not trying to understand the world as a separate from human beings, as something external to human beings, because human beings are a part of the world. So the human beings are included in the understanding which Sankhya is trying to gain. So, so now I'm asking you, is there any other way you can know the world apart from these five senses? And is there any other way this entire world will present itself for your knowledge other than the channels through which we are knowing the world? So we see solidity in the world. There is matter, there is solid substances, then liquidity is there in the world. Then there is a form because we are seeing different kind of form. We have known thousands of forms. We know thousands and thousands of forms which are existing. The trees are there, the flowers. In flowers also there are so many forms. In colors also there are so many colors. How many colors are there? Nobody can tell. Science has developed so much, but if we talk about the colors, our eyes will not be able to discern and name even a simple color like pink. the pink color may have so many shades, so many shades. Indians will know it very well because Indians are wearing saris. So when they buy a sari, they go to a shop to buy a blouse piece. And if you have ever seen this, I am giving an example to understand. If you go to an Indian shop, cloth shop, which is selling these blouses for saris, you will find at least 50, 60, 70 shades of pink, and then they will match your sari with that particular shade of pink, and they will select that pink and they will give it to you so that you can make a blouse out of it. And same way, if it is a blue color, you will find maybe 60, 70 shades of blue color. And human language, no human language has got words for each of the shade of blue or each of the shade of pink. There are so many pinks. You can say, the rose pink is there. Then there is some different little, so 3 or 4 or 5 names we can say, these 5 types of pink colors. Pure pink or baby pink, as they call it, baby pink. So we have formulated different kind of terminology to explain the word pink. But there are so many shades of pinks which we cannot name. Now that is the variety. This is function of what? Agni Tattva. Form. All forms are Agni Tattva. So anything related to vision, anything related to light, anything related to visibility, any kind of visibility is connected to Agni Tattva. So that means if the Agni Tattva, Agni Bhuta is there in the external world, how we are knowing that? We are knowing it through our eyes. The form is known through the eyes. We look at it, the light is there, the form is created in the eyes. The eyes are sending the signals to the brain, and brain makes out, okay, this is this object or this is this form. So this way, all forms will be known by. So you understand the beauty of Sankhya classification. There are certain things which are known through smell. There are certain things which are known through smell. All those things which have got smell will be related to Prithvi Tattva. All those things which will have liquidity will be connected to Jala Tattva. All those things which are connected to form or vision, various colors, various forms, statues, very complicated kind of designs, sky color. Look at the sky color. We cannot name the sky color. We become speechless when we look at the beauty of the sky. It is so beautiful and it is so colorful. Particularly in summer when the sun is setting, look at the sky, how many colors are there. And all this is connected to Agni Tattva. And where it is residing in the body? In the eyes. So that means if there is Agni Tattva in the external world, there has to be Agni Tattva in our body also to be able to connect with the Agni Tattva of the external world. So where is that Agni Tattva in our body? It is in the eyes. So eyes are, and what is Agni Tattva? Pure energy, pure energy. So it is Rajasic. It is also connected to Guna. See, it is so beautifully, everything is so connected, well connected, and so logically explained. And then all the sparsha, all the sensation, tactile sense, touch. Our fingers have got very highly developed sense of touch. So anything we want to know properly, we try to touch it and try to feel it. We try to feel its texture with the help of tactile sense. So this comes from where? This comes from Vayu Tattva. This comes from Vayu Mahabhut. And then the sounds. We are able to hear the sounds. And that is connected to Akash Tattva, space. But this space is considered as very important in physics also. We know that physics studying space, and if we remember Albert Einstein, the great scientist, formula of E is equal to mc square. I don't know much. See, when I'm giving you example of science, don't think that I have studied science and I'm good at science. No, I'm not good at science. I don't know much about science. But whatever I read, whatever I study, from that, whatever little knowledge I have gathered, I know that in physics, space is very important. And they have understood what is the space and how the space is expanding. But then this space which they are talking about is earlier, maybe 30, 40, 50 years back, physics used to believe that there is empty space out there. But now things have changed. They don't say there is an empty space. In fact, empty space cannot be perceived. There's nothing called empty space. Whatever space we are looking at, it is containing some kind of matter. It is containing some kind of substance. And this Akasha is related to the sound or the power of hearing. So now what they are trying to say, what is the relationship between Akasha? All the hearing is possible because there is a space. There is a void. If we close the eyes and we start hearing the sounds, you don't do it. Now this requires very quiet mind and a very curious mind, a very inquiring kind of mind, a very focused mind to study. So these yogis were of that kind. They wanted to understand every experience. So they spend a lot of time understanding what that experience are. We take it for granted. हम लोग तो नींद से उठते हैं. As soon as we get up in the morning, we are hearing our at home family members are talking to us. We are hearing their sounds. We are making meaning, but we hardly bother and ask why this capacity is there in me, from where it has come, and what is the connection of my ear to the external world. What is the connection of what others are saying and I am able to hear? We don't bother about it. But then Sankhya and Yoga explains that, and this sutra is talking about that only. So they say that this focus, when it is done on the relationship between the power of hearing and the space outside, then we can come to know a much more deeper, facts about, or the subtle information or the subtle jnana related to this relationship. And as a result, we can develop little divine power. So now you see, we saw that these Panchamahabhutas are nothing but they are the objects of our senses through which we know the external world. So eyes have got the object in the form of form. Nose has got the subject or vishaya in the form of smell, gandha, fragrances. Tongue has got the taste sensation, so it has got the vishaya in the form of various kinds of tests which we are and everything has got taste. When we touch any substance, you will find they have got distinct and different tastes. So this way they become the object of our. So Shabda is the subtlest of the Vishaya, and out of these five, when we talk about Gandha or smell and the taste and the form and the touch and sound, sound is the subtlest of them because sound penetrates everything. You will find that if there is a lot of light, what we have to do, we can just close our eyes and put our hand before the eyes and the light will stop. It is very easy to, although light is a very, very powerful energy, but we can stop it by covering the eyes. But sound cannot be stopped in that way. Sound penetrates. So sound is the most subtle object for human mind. So when this sound is heard, if we close our eyes, you can try this experiment. When we close our eyes, and just we are hearing the sounds as we do normally in the case of technique known as Nishpanda Bhav at the Yoga Institute. When we are doing Nishpand Bhav, there our minds are really too distracted. And why we are practicing Nishpand Bhav? Just to relax ourselves. So it will cause physical relaxation because when we are focusing on the sound, the body tends to relax. So for that purpose, Nishpand Bhav is used. But Nishpand Bhav can be also used for gaining more knowledge. So when we are hearing the sounds, and the suggestion is there that listen to the most subtle sounds. So when we are hearing to the subtle sounds, what happens? We get a sense of external space. There's an extension outside. There's a space, there's a void outside. Without that void, the sound cannot be heard. So sound is the quality of void. Sound is the quality of space. Akash Tattva ka wo gun hai. It's the characteristics of space. It's the characteristics of emptiness. But empty Totally empty space is not possible, that we have seen. So now you see, this focus on the sound and listening to the sound gives a idea, a conception of the external space. And when we are focusing on that, gradually we develop a subtle power of hearing. And that is what is known as the divine power, or the, as the sutra calls it, Divya Shotram. Divya Shotram. Divya means divine. Divine's hearing power. So it is a simple thing, but then what is the principle involved that we saw? How it is important to understand these tattvas. Ultimately, you will find that physics also talked about how, what Sankhya says are five tattvas, Panchamahabhutas, Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Shiti. Same thing, chemistry calls elements. But in elements also, you'll find that, there are certain heavy elements, certain light elements. Heaviest elements have got maximum numbers of subatomic particles. So same way you will find that these Panchamahabhutas also, they are grosser and they are subtle. So Prithvi Tattva, which has got Gandha, is the most gross form, and it is very tamasic. So we can hardly, you'll find that in a general way, when we look at our sense capacities, our capacity to discern between different kind of scents and fragrances is very limited. Much more developed than the sense of smell is the sense of taste. But even more than the sense of taste, what is more powerfully available to is the form. We can distinguish between various kinds of forms. This distinction goes on becoming subtler and wider. And then we come to sense of touch. Sense of touch is much more acute than the earlier three senses. Earlier three senses of nose, eyes, and taste. More than that, what is specialized or what is subtle, what is really important is sense of touch. And more than the sense of touch, it is the sound which is much more subtle. So amongst the objects of our senses, in terms of discernment, in terms of gaining knowledge, what about which object we can gain maximum knowledge? If to put it in a very simple language, which are the objects about which we can gain maximum knowledge? If we look at it in this way, then we'll find that we can have less knowledge of Prithvi, little better is Jala, little better is form, little better is touch, but the best is the sound. Human ear can discern and discriminate between so many thousands of sounds. Merely by listening to sound, one can really judge what is happening. So, in terms of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, Akasha is the most subtle and sattvic, sound is the most subtle and sattvic, and Prithvi or earth element is the most tamasic, because it is becoming jad and jad. So that is what we find in categories of substance according to physics also, or according to science also. We find there are heavy substances, there are light substances, and matter normally exists in three conditions. Recently I was reading that somebody related to space research, I was reading something, they talked about substance existing in the fourth category also. It has not become clear. Maybe after some years, things will become clear. Is there any fourth dimension, fourth? But normally, science would talk about matter existing in three forms: the solid, the liquid, and the gaseous. Solid is the heaviest. So solid is closer to Prithvi Tattva because it is very solid, it is heavy. And liquid is closer to Jala Tattva. As we saw in five bhutas, Prithvi is the lowest, and then comes the Jala. And then gaseous form is the lightest. So there in science also you'll find these categories which Sankhya and Yoga is talking about. That grosser substance is heavy, it is more tamasic. Lighter substance is more sattvic. So knowledge of lighter substance is more possible, because as we go further in the development, the more and more obstructiveness comes. So there is an obstruction in sense of smell. suppose if there is a substance kept away from you, say 10 meters, 15 meters, you will not be able to smell. No, there is a flower tree, beautiful flower tree is there, and you are standing at a distance of maybe 10 feet from the tree. You will not be able to smell the flowers of the tree. For that, you will have to go closer to the tree. You have to pluck a flower and you have to bring it closer to the nose. Then you will smell it. Then you will know, oh, this is a beautiful fragrance of flower. So for that, a physical act of plucking or so, and we know science tells us, biology tells us that there are certain particles of matter which enter our nostrils, and there are sensory receptors in our nostrils which are able to discern what kind of smell that is. So this is how the nasal passage contains, these sensors responsible for giving us a discernment and knowledge of the sense of smell. But then, tongue is much more specialized than nasal passage sensors. Tongue has got better sensors. So the moment we, if we want to try to know about the food articles, what we do immediately, we just dip our finger, try to touch it and try to make out. And tip of the tongue has got maximum sensors. So that way it goes on developing. And ultimately, that means what happens, why we are not able to discern, why we are not able to smell very easily, because there are obstructions. The distance is an obstruction. Distance between the object of smell and the nose, this distance is an obstruction. It is not allowing us to gather the smell of that object. And as we progress further, this obstruction goes on reducing. In test, there is a less obstruction. In form, eyes can discern forms like anything. So there is maximum power in the eyes. So it is made up of rajas as well as there is a lot of activity in the eyes. So we can, and same way in sense of touch is all pervading, all over body that sense of touch is there. It is not restricted to, like hearing is restricted to ears, but sense of touch is not restricted. Like the eyes are there, restriction is there. So this way it goes on developing. So you'll find sound is the most unobstructed object of senses. At a great distance, we are sitting here and maybe miles away, some explosion takes place. We will be able to hear it. We will not be able to touch, feel the touch. We will not be able to see the form. We will not be, according to physics, if the light is there, then light travels very fast. So if you are looking in that direction, maybe we will see the light first and then the sound will come. But even if we have closed eyes, then also we'll be able to hear the sound. Subsequently, sound will travel. And sound will travel crossing all the obstacles. So sound is the particular phenomena where the obstructiveness is very less. So our ears are very, very sensitive and they have got more capacity for knowledge. They have got more capacity of discriminating between different sounds. So that is what this sutra is trying to say, that these Pancha Mahabhutas and Pancha Jnanendriyas, they have got, and these Jnanendriyas and Pancha Mahabhutas are part of the Sankhya Tattvas. The 25 Tattvas which Sankhya talks about, they are part of that. They constitute part of the Sankhya Tattvas. So when concentration is done, when we try to understand this relationship between the power of hearing and the space around us, space is everywhere. So when this concentration is carried out, then persons may develop a different kind of power of hearing, which will be known as Divya Shrotam. That is what this sutra is trying to say. So if we look at the sutra, it just says that you will develop divine power. But how it is happening, for that we'll have to really understand the entire cosmology of Sankhya. How the world develops, how we have developed, what sense capacities we have, how we are functioning. All that will have to be known. That is why I went to all these details, so that you can appreciate that how these Sankhya yogis have really worked so hard to tell us about this reality. And they are all part of experiences. So one quotation has been given here by the great Sankhya master, Panchashikha. His quote has been given in the Vyas Bhasha of this sutra. And it says, I'll just, read that. It's a very important quotation. And I'll just explain it to you that we are sitting here, and we are sitting here, all of us, like I'm talking to you, all of you are hearing my voice. There's no one who's not listening. If there was no sense of hearing, then person will not listen. Otherwise, if any person who's there in the class, he will be able to hear what I am saying. So that means there's a common faculty, there's a common capacity in all of us, that is known as power of hearing. And then this is coming to you through the space. I am at a different space right now, and I'm speaking, and through certain medium my voice is traveling and it is coming to your ears, and you are able to hear me. So understand the significance of this, that we all have this capacity, and we all are able to hear because there is element of akasha in all of us. There is an element of akasha, there is space outside, but and the sound is the characteristics of space. But how we are able to hear that sound which is there in the space? Because there is certain amount of akasha in us also. Where is that akasha? That akasha is in the ear. And we saw that what is sound? Sound is a vibration. It is energy. It's a vibration. Vibration can take place only in space. If there is no space, there is no vibration. There will be no vibration if there is no space. So somebody may say, like, the commentator has very beautifully said, no, but we have metal. So we have, suppose metal vessel is there, or in temple big bells are there. So we strike the bell, and from bell the sound comes. So this vibration is there in the bell. But is the sound vibration in the bell, or what is the reality? So when we are striking the bell, the energy which is there, that is, the vibrations which are there, they take support of the bell, and those vibrations are sent out. Those vibrations reach our ear, and then we are able to hear. Like now I'm talking, I'm talking to you, I'm producing sound. So there has to be some amount of akasha in the speech mechanism also, and it is there, and the vibrations are being created. How vibrations are being created? I desire to speak something. I want to tell you something. Then there's an intention in my mind that I want to say this. This is happening at a very fast and at a subtle level. So that intention is there. Now I'm going to use certain words. So when I'm thinking of using those words, those are automatically taking place within the voice box, and vibrations are created at the voice box. The muscle fiber, the fibers which are there in the sound box, they are energized through muscular power, and they are producing certain vibration. That vibration is converted into the sound which is heard. So what I am telling you is nothing but vibrations coming from my voice box and converting into a certain kind of sounds, and they touch the ear, and then the power, then one is able to make a sense out of what is being said. So this is the mechanism. So that means there is a akasha, there is a space in our body mind complex, in our senses. अगर कान में आकाश नहीं होता था तो हमको सुनाई नहीं देता था, क्योंकि वाइब्रेशन कहाँ होंगे? अगर अगर स्पेस नहीं है यहाँ पे, तो वाइब्रेशन हो नहीं सकते हैं. तो इसका मतलब कानों में भी कुछ ना कुछ आकाश तत्व है. तो our entire body is also made up of panch tattvas, pancha mahabhutas. Our body has got akasha, space is there. Like science says, one of the definition of matter. What is matter? Science studies what is matter and what is non-matter. So if you go according to science, what is matter? If you ask a scientist, if you ask a physicist, so one of the characteristics scientists would give you, it will say a matter is something which occupies space. This is the standard definition you will find in science books. What is matter? Matter is something which occupies space. So space is everywhere. There is nothing in this world which is devoid of space, because when we talk about a substance, the space comes in. Space is there. So when we talk about body, in body also there is a space. And we look at the cells, Like when you look at the cells of external substance, say iron, steel, or wood. When we look at the atom of that wood, you will find there's a lot of space between the nucleus of the cell and the periphery of the cell. So electrons are there, protons and neutrons are there at the nucleus, and electrons are moving in the cell, in the atom. So between electrons and proton neutron nucleus, there is a lot of gap, there is a lot of space. So our body is also made up of these subtle cells, and there's a lot of space in our body. But this space is predominant in the ears and the power of speech. Because here we are using Akash Tattva. I'm using Akash Tattva to convey my thoughts by way of words to you, and you are able to hear my voice through the Akash in your ear, and then you are able to use your mind to understand what I am saying. So this Akash Tattva is helping in producing sound. This Akash Tattva is helping. So you are able to hear a certain frequency of sound because we are used to that. We are not used to any other kind of frequency. But is it possible to go to another frequency? Is it possible to change this frequency? So according to yoga, yes, there are certain methods, there are certain techniques. Like science will not be interested in doing that hard work of developing that higher sense in the doctor. So what doctor will do? Now doctor wants to listen to the heartbeat. Doctor wants to listen to the sounds which are coming from the body so that he can understand what is happening inside body. So what he will do? He will use a certain gadget. So he will put that instrument in the ear and then he will touch the knob to the ear. Yes. And he hears the sound which we cannot normally hear. So science does it by development of certain sensitive instrument. So our eyes, they can see limited. So science wants to go deeper into it. It wants to see subtler thing. So first it developed microscope, which has got very limited capacity. Ordinary physical microscope has got very limited capacity. But there are electronic microscope, they can magnify a tiny substance to millions of times. You can see it as a large substance, which naked eye cannot see. So science does it with the help of instrument, through the help of research, but yogis have found their own method. They say that by hard work, by concentration, by understanding, by focus, you can develop this capacity to know the subtle things also in your limited capacity also, and your limited capacity can be enhanced. So in a way, it is a different kind of when I'm talking, as again, I'm telling you that I'm not comparing science and yoga. When I'm giving all these scientific examples or science examples, they are just to convey the idea or to understand things in a better way. That's why I'm using them. So science is using instruments to magnify, instruments to amplify. So sound is amplified or the form is magnified so that we can see it very clearly. Even amoeba, single cell living organism can be seen with the microscope, which naked eye cannot see. But then we had talked about some people perform having the acute sense of vision and they can see much more than other people, maybe by accident, maybe by some kind of kriya, some kind of action. So this sutra is talking about this ability to develop that subtle sense of hearing and to be able to hear the divine sounds. Now, in the next sutra again, we'll be talking about Akasha, but in relation to the body, not only in the relation to the ear, but in relation to the Akasha, because our body occupies space, but it is moving in the space. So that we will see next time. This is little technical. I tried to make it interesting. I tried to make it little more understandable, but I don't know how far I have succeeded. You will know better.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, in fact, if they reach the Siddhi, then they are able to hear the sound or understand the language of the birds also. Like
Yeah, yeah, that has come earlier. Sutra 17th, we talked about it. Sarva Bhuta Ruta Jnanam, we have talked about it. That is the earliest kind of Siddhi. In Sutra 17, it was discussed. So if there are any more questions, I think it is very technical, so maybe there are not many questions, but think about it. Think about how.
One more thing.
Yeah.
As you said, as you're speaking, there is a vibration in the vocal cord, and from that the sound comes. The same way, like there can be like sounds everywhere in the body, right?
Yeah.
That's what the Hatha Yoga says about the Anahatnath.
Yeah. So there's a continuous, you see, science would call it combustion. Whenever energy is, the fire is burning something, what is happening? That change is taking place in the substance. And there's a sound there. Same way in our body, right now, so many activities are going on. And these activities are creating certain vibration, which we are not able to hear. So if we close our ears and we just try to listen to the sounds coming from the body, then we can hear a continuous, unbroken kind of sound. And this is again, as I told you, in India, there are many spiritual seekers who are following this technology, this technique of listening to this anahata nada, which Hatha Yoga talks about, or even Tantra talks about it. Mantra Yoga talks about it. So various methods are there through which this knowledge is gained. Okay. So we leave it here. Namaste everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.